Disclaimer: this is not general advice from an expert programmer. These are thoughts and reflections shared by a beginner coder who wants to become a better coder. Today, I wanted to talk about why I think Udemy is good for beginner coders. My experience in coding so far is I've been studying coding for 37 days, in which I spent 120 hours on Codecademy in the web development path, and I have spent 45 hours on two Udemy courses regards to React Native and 40 hours on two Udemy courses on Kotlin and Android app development. So, I tell you these numbers not to, impress you in any way. It is more to tell you that I am a beginner, a struggling beginner, and I have different perspectives by now, having spent these hours and having also watched countless number of YouTube advice videos and various articles on how to become a better programmer. And the general advice for a beginner that I have read is first, learn some basic syntax through websites like Codecademy. Another popular one being Free Code Camp for web development. Number two, then is to choose a language and learn it. And third, the advice goes build something and keep building, learning, building, and eventually a portfolio of apps or websites and whatnot. And the difficulties I went through, and no, I go through, is that I couldn't and can't filter and retain information very well. Um, though hopefully it's getting better. And number two, just as importantly, I actually had difficulty deciding what I wanted to learn, and I'm gonna go into that in the next screen. So this is where Udemy came in for me. And here is what I like about Udemy so far. The first is I find the classes, at least the ones that I have taken, to be of good quality. And I especially like the fact that there is a structure to it, there is a curriculum, and I know the start and end before I begin. The tip I have for those who are looking at Udemy classes is to read the reviews, and I tend to go through the more popular classes, but I especially pay attention to the 3 and 4 star reviews. I understand, just like with anything, it's just like Amazon, there's a certain level of gaming in place with regards to reviews, but I am realizing that they probably don't, pay or persuade others to leave 3 or 4 star reviews. So I do pay attention to that. Um, I also found it very easy to Google instructors. I found that they almost always give their first and last name and a bio, and it's easy to, read about the instructor's experiences, backgrounds, which is, quite important if you're going to spend 10 to 20 hours with an instructor. It's good practice, of course, to do some research. But I found that I got a pretty decent sense of what this person has done before I purchased the classes. Number two is that in each Udemy class that I have taken, there is a lot of application of knowledge through projects that I think are quality. They're high quality, well thought out projects. And, it really helped me in understanding what is important and why as I saw the applications. The and I think that is the extent that I could really explain it is I had a hard time on Codecademy, and I really do think Codecademy was very good for me to understand basic syntax, although I do think I spent too much time on it compared to the applying part. But it really helped sink in what why the concepts are important, why um, the things, the syntax, the various concepts and theories, why they were important and how they are applied and how best they are applied. It really helped me understand that. The second benefit through the application is something that I didn't really appreciate before, is it helped me understand and decide what I wanted to learn. Before I purchased my first Udemy class, I had done a lot of digging after taking the web development path and finishing almost all of it on Codecademy. I thought React Native is what I wanted to do and pursue. I had read enough about it. I read enough articles about how you can't really go wrong with React Native. But as I did spend the hours applying React Native through the two Udemy classes I took, I realized, I actually would prefer to just choose one native language, and I have an Android phone, so I thought Kotlin could be cool to learn. Um, and I thought it would be, I'm not sure what the right word is, except that I realized I prefer it. Now, of course, I could change my mind, but it actually helped me under, really internalize that because I did spend a lot of hours on React Native, but more important than the hours, I actually got to apply it on starting from simple apps to more complex apps. Um, so that really helped me narrow it down. One of the things I realized from uh, from expert programmers of it is how they spent a lot of time on languages that later became not as relevant or that they realized they liked something else. But I thought, especially for beginner coders who don't have hands-on experience, I thought it really accelerated that decision-making path, and it will continue to do so as well. Number three, this is something that I never thought would be relevant, is that I found immense value in the Q&A section on Udemy courses. Um, One thing I didn't know is that uh, and languages get updated, libraries get updated. Um, Especially something like React Native, the different modules get updated. So if the course is like 1 or 2 years old, things have changed. The Q&A section on Udemy courses was incredibly active of um, students um, who were going through the same problems. And I was able to troubleshoot a lot with combination of Q&A and Stack Overflow and get through a lot of the courses. And I think, this is, I don't know how prevalent this is across different platforms like YouTube or other things, but I can't imagine like there was a certain critical mass on the popular Udemy courses where people are very generous to post questions and answers. And I was almost always, not almost always, I was always able to get the answer through a combination of the Q&A section and also Googling a little bit on Stack Overflow. But this is something that I don't think um, that that many appreciate. I think only a beginner could really appreciate this part. But it was very helpful and continues to be very helpful. Um, and interestingly enough, in the Q&A section, it's not all beginners. There's also a lot of experienced programmers who are, say, coming from iOS to learn Kotlin, but they like to share their knowledge and answer questions on the Q&A section, which is, very nice of them. But it's something I did really appreciate. Number four is I have through the Udemy courses, decent code and content to upload to GitHub. Um, I remember when I created a GitHub account, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was extremely proud. It's like a small milestone I wanted to achieve as a beginner programmer to have a GitHub account. I had heard about it for so long, how great it is and how people use it, uh, but it seems so foreign. Um, But when I created an account, I was very proud that I was able to even make a GitHub account. But that excitement lasted like a day, and I realized I have like nothing to upload to GitHub account. I have no code. What am I gonna possibly uh, upload to GitHub account? Well, I realized while doing the courses and building the different apps and doing their projects, I actually have a reason to version control some of the things I was doing. And the very mere fact that I had to do that, that I actually had to care about version control and committing and not losing my work. One time, my computer completely crashed and I lost hours of work, and I was like, holy crap, like, oh, I shouldn't curse. Um, but um, I underst that's when I understood I need to take care of these. I need to spend a little of time understanding Git commands. Now, I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but it still was extremely beneficial for me. I spending time uh, in the terminal, caring about the git add, git commit, git push, um, was again a benefit that I didn't foresee before paying for any Udemy classes. And one of the courses I took really emphasized this as well, so of course that helped a lot. But that has been beneficial for me, that I have code and content to upload to GitHub to my GitHub account. Number five is, you'll be able to find $10 Udemy coupons all over the internet. Sometimes it's 10 to 12. $12 is almost a given. You should never pay more than $12. You should really never pay more than $10. But I find that low cost. Of course, it's not free. Um, but I obviously have benefited quite a bit from it. I think the important part is the easy refunds. I made the mistake when took a good course on Udemy. I got really excited and I bought like five or six, and they were almost all in React Native and JavaScript. And I think I briefly mentioned, I was like, oh, I actually want to do Kotlin and Android development instead. I refunded three courses. It all happened between 1 or 2 days. It was pretty easy. It was pretty simple to do. I like the fact that I got to get a quick 30-day refund. Um, I mean, I've subscribed to stuff that have been harder to get refunds in the past of other services, but I could attest that the refund process in Udemy, I think it's 30 days, but it was relatively straightforward. It was very simple. And I got my credit on my credit card a few days ago, so I could attest that it's pretty easy. Um, and one thing about Udemy courses, and this is, I put it in the both good and bad category. And of course, I've taken, beginner classes. Um, all four of them have been beginner classes. And what I do notice though is that the beginner classes all start very easy and slow. They go through the very basics, but at a certain point, all four of them, and without exception, it leapfrogs intermediate, where the instructor kind of takes over. They try their best to explain the intermediate and sometimes even advanced concepts. Because the reality is, and remember, all four classes I've taken are app-related courses in React Native and Kotlin. They say, oh, you could build an app. You could build all these apps in 10 to 20 hours. And at a certain point going in, I should have known that I'm not going to be able to understand everything. And, it's not sometimes the course's fault. I should have paused the course and try to dig in. But reality also is that they're also catering to not just the beginner, but to cross-platform programmers, intermediate programmers who want to learn about React Native or Kotlin. So they do need to cater to that audience as well. I understand. So they do, but it is also a fact that they suddenly jump into intermediate and advanced. They say sometimes, well, you will you will understand this through repetition, which I'm sure is true, but it does leapfrog into the intermediate. And I say it's good and bad. The bad is obviously sometimes you feel like you're kind of copying and pasting what the instructor is doing. The good is that you're still getting exposure to intermediate advanced concepts that is relevant and useful in the type of app development that you want to aspire to. And it has helped me filter through, um, when I read now some of the primary documentation and Kotlin and Android development, it helps me kind of filter through information. I was like, oh, that instructor has talked about this. Oh, I remember watching and actually typing in the code for this. So it helped kind of prioritize and filter information. So I actually see it as a benefit as well. But at first, I also do remember feeling a little bit lost and feeling like a copy paster. But it also probably also reflects on me that I should have paused and also maybe dug in a little bit further. But I think it's also just part of the um, overall marketing of the courses, how they say build an app in X number of days, build an app, and I understand that it's part of the business, it's part of the marketing, but I did want to mention on that aspect as well. Um, so I think that is all I wanted to talk about this topic. I'm sure you've noticed this is on an Android emulator. Um, I ha I took this opportunity instead of using PowerPoint, um, which I've been using for almost a decade. I figured if I'm going to learn a little bit, um, not a little bit, hopefully a lot about Kotlin and Android, might as well do this um, in in this format as well. So thank you very much for listening.